I'm delighted to present our second video on the mega trends in the private equity industry, featuring one of my favorite topics, sustainability and ESG. Today, we have the honor to welcome Pascale Simon. Pascale is one of the founders of Seewhy, a firm whose mission is to support boards in continuously improving their governance and effectiveness, with a complete onboarding of the sustainability dimension. Pascale is an expert in this field and making her the best person to share insights on this topic. On behalf of Wallen Case, a very warm thank you, Pascale.
With pleasure.
One of the significant mega trends impacting private equity is the increasing importance of environmental, social, and governance consideration in PE investment. This is not merely a trend, but a critical criterion for the sustainability of businesses. Pascale, why should ESG and sustainability be strategic considerations for board members?
There are many reasons. I would say there are three drivers. The first one is a positive driver, is the scrutiny from all stakeholders to ensure that the sustainability dimension is embarked in the corporate strategy. And it goes from institutional investors who are really transitioning from simple compliance to ensuring that the best practice in that domain are applied. It concerns the employee who are really making their choice on the employer's attitude towards the sustainability dimension and the positioning of the company. It also concerns the suppliers through the Scope 3 consideration, and of course the clients who are more and more doing ethic choice. The second driver is a more defensive one, and it's the board director role to protect the reputation of the company. And you and I, we know it's a vital asset of any company. And it's based on transparency and ethics, and any pitfall in that domain can have really severe consequences for the company. We know some well-known examples around the globe. The third driver is a mandatory one, and it comes from the increasing regulation and legislation in that domain. And if the last CSRD, the European regulation, is applied in the different countries, it means that not only the board as a collective organ, but the board director as individual will be held responsible if companies are not taking the right action towards the impact of the company on the environment.
Thank you, Pascale, for those very insightful comments. Let's now move to our second question. What challenges do face board of directors when incorporating sustainability criteria?
I would say the first challenge is a lack of knowledge and understanding of the risk and opportunities linked to sustainability. Board of directors are relying still too much on the information provided by the management. They don't have a good understanding of the global shift that it implies for their company, and the lack of insight to understand the strategy, the sustainability strategy developed by the management, and moreover to oversee its implementation. The second challenge comes maybe from the tension between the long-term investment it requires to embark the sustainability dimension and the short-term financial pressure from the shareholders. And so it's really difficult to find the right balance between the two. The third dimension is maybe that there is not enough space for the sustainability dimension on the board agenda, in the discussion within the board, during the debate. And the fourth challenge is mainly coming from the lack of courageous decision in the board. It requires a lot of courage to do it, and sometimes we lack of that courage within boards.
Thank you, Pascale. We're now approaching the end of our session with our final question. Based upon your experience, what are your recommendations for best practices for board members?
I would say the first one linked to the first challenges is really to ensure that the boards can rely on the adequate and the relevant information. And so it's what is the level of knowledge of the board and assess that knowledge. It is to ask for external expert advices. It's to check who is providing the information to the board. I would say the second recommendation is linked to the governance and the board structure. The board must nominate, or could nominate, at least one sustainable champion, or maybe two. The board can set up a committee, a sustainability committee, that is reporting to the board, ideally. It can also embark the dimension within the existing committee, mostly the audit, the risk of, or the nomination committee. But at the end, we can hope that all board directors will feel responsible and will master the sustainability dimension. I think the third recommendation would be to define shorter, tangible, sustainable objectives, because it's very difficult for a board to feel responsible for long-term objectives. They don't see the impact of those objectives on the short term, and who from the management or from the board will still be there in 2030 or even 2050. Nobody, and so there is no accountability for those objectives. And finally, I would say appoint courageous chairs. They are instrumental to form a crucial tandem with the CEO. They must be decisive and they must be able to take sometimes decisions that are, I would say, short pain for long gains. And they must be able to challenge the short-term financial interest of the shareholder and ensure that the long-term sustainable strategy is implemented.
This was a very interesting discussion. Thank you very much, Pascale.